Namaskar and very warm welcome to you in our special session, live session by NCSL at NIEPA, जिसे आप तक लेकर आता है NCSL यानी कि नेशनल सेंटर फॉर स्कूल लीडरशिप और NIEPA यानी नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एजुकेशन प्लानिंग एंड एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन। और हमारे इस स्पेशल लाइव प्रोग्राम को आप देख रहे हैं eVidya चैनल नंबर 6, 9 और 12 पर। इसके साथ ही आप हमें देख सकते हैं NCERT यूट्यूब ऑफिशियल पर। आपके साथ मैं याशु गांधी और हमारा ये जो स्पेशल कार्यक्रम है इसका उद्देश्य है स्कूल लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट को और ज़्यादा आगे बढ़ाना, उसको प्रोत्साहित करना। और इसमें इस श्रृंखला में जो हमारा आज का विषय यानी जो आज का टॉपिक है वो है लीडिंग असेसमेंट ऑफ SLDP इन स्कूल लीडरशिप एकेडमिक्स 2024 to 2025। और इस सेशन में जो स्पेशल गेस्ट हमारे साथ हैं, आइए आपका भी उनसे परिचय करवा देते हैं। हमारे साथ जो स्टूडियो में खास मेहमान हैं वो हैं असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर चारू मलिक फ्रॉम NCSL NIEPA। मैम, गुड इवनिंग एंड वेरी वार्म वेलकम टू यू इन दिस सेशन।
थैंक यू।
तो मैम से हम इस विषय पर डिटेल में समझेंगे, लेकिन उससे पहले दो खास बातें, और वो ये कि चूंकि ये हमारा लाइव इंटरेक्टिव सेशन है तो आप चाहें तो हमसे अपनी क्वेरीज या अपने कोई भी सवाल हों वो पूछ सकते हैं। हमारे नंबर लगातार स्क्रीन पर दिखाए जा रहे हैं जो कि आपके पास होंगे, और अगर नहीं है तो उसको नोट डाउन कर लें या फिर उसको सेव कर लें। इसके साथ ही आप जो अपना फीडबैक है किसी भी प्रोग्राम से जुड़ा हुआ, हमारे किसी भी अंक से और इस कार्यक्रम से जुड़ा हुआ, वो भी आप साझा कर सकते हैं। हमारा ईमेल का पता भी लगातार स्क्रीन पर दिखाया जा रहा है। तो आपको और ज़्यादा इंतज़ार ना करवाते हुए चलिए बढ़ते हैं आगे और सेशन की करते हैं शुरुआत चारू मैम के साथ। मैम, ओवर टू यू। क्या है ये हमारा ये जो डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम है, जब हम इसके असेसमेंट की जब बात करते हैं स्पेशली हम 2024 और 25 के सेशन की, तो ये क्या है इसके बारे में बताइए मैम।
Thank you, Yashu, and we welcome all the school leadership academies because this is a study that has been given to all the leadership academies for the current financial year, and here we are going to talk about the very basics of how you can assess the school leadership development that you have been leading for past 7 to 10 years. So we are going to discuss that in detail. However, this is just the first session and we will have more such sessions where we are going to go much deeper into what can be the models of assessment and what are the modalities of assessment and so on. And then how do we construct a tool which is going to be basically an assessment tool in the research framework, and how do we really assess the changes that are happening at the ground level. So this is something that we are beginning as a pilot project in the current financial year, and this is also going to take the shape of a much more large scale evaluation of the program, which is the school leadership development program. So right at the beginning, I think if you look at the slides, this is what we had in our mind when we began with the program. So program, the word program has been attached with school leadership development because it involves financial implications. Otherwise, when you look at this phrase in black, school leadership development, it is more of a philosophy in terms of what is leadership and how is a leader made, how can a leader become more effective. So we are talking about more such things which are reflective in nature and which are more experiential in nature. And how do we really bring about positive changes in personalities and how do they influence the circumstances around in a more positive fashion. So school leadership development, when we have visualized this or when we conceptualized it at the very beginning in 2012, 2013, that is a time when as all of you know, when this whole idea was born. It was more in terms of how do we develop leaders or individuals as leaders, who are able to bring about positive changes in their environment. But when we attach this word program, it has financial implications because a program of such magnitude has to have certain financial parameters to be implemented and to reach to the ground at the last unit. So this is really the difference between school leadership development and school leadership development program. Now every program has a certain set of objectives which are defined within a vision statement, and so is the same case with the SLDP program. And when we are talking about programs, then of course this whole idea of program assessment, program evaluation, that also comes through in the developmental discourse, because whenever the funds are attached to any such idea, and there is this whole concept of implementation, the funding agency would always want to know what are the results, what are the outcomes. And that is when this whole idea of evaluation comes in, assessment comes in, and therefore everybody wants to know, what was the real objective of the program and what did it intend to achieve, and has it actually achieved what it intended to achieve. So these are certain questions which are always there in the minds of the designing agencies or the funding agencies. And this is where this notion of assessment comes in. So when we are looking at school leadership development in a broad philosophical sense, it is more in terms of how and what are the different methods, how we can become better leaders, how we can bring positive changes in ourselves, and how can we bring about positive changes in people whom we are working with, other stakeholders. And if we look at specifically in the context of schools, the different stakeholders that are there, the teaching, the non-teaching staff, the students, the parents community, and the larger society by itself. So it's more of an idea which is reflective, experiential, progressive. But when we are attaching this whole idea of program, it gets bound with objectives and implementation and outcomes. So this is what we're really going to talk about, that since this has taken the shape of a program, we need to go for assessment of this program. Now at present there are 29 school leadership academies in India, which are intrinsically linked with the National Center for School Leadership, and the leadership academies have been asked to conduct the assessment of the SLDP in a very basic format in the current financial year, and we'll see how it kind of proceeds and how it kind of pans out in future, and how can we make it into a more large scale impact evaluation. So quickly again, if we come to what is meant by assessment, it is a framework that has a set of guidelines, procedures and tools that help measure and evaluate the learning and progress that has taken place, right? That is one. And it's important for any program assessing agency. It could be done by a third party agency. It could also be done by the agency which is running the program, which is the school leadership academies. So really the first step is here to define the purpose. Why do we want to assess this program, and what would be the areas or themes which we are going to identify for assessment. What are the skills that we are going to assess, the competencies of stakeholders that need to be assessed. So that we need to define first. We also need to define what would be the methods and tools of assessment and so on. Further defining the criteria for evaluation, and then what would be the standards against which we are assessing. So basically overall we are really looking at what are the objectives and how did these objectives pan out in a span of time, and what are the criteria for assessment, and what were the results finally. So this whole exercise requires careful planning, and that is what we have been sharing with the leadership academies over different platforms, and really need to identify, in terms of how are you going to do this whole process, so that the final outcomes that are achieved, we can really see whether the intention and the implication, it had some alignment or not. It is also largely an iterative process, so there is a lot of ongoing review and revision to ensure that the assessment is also effective and reliable, and we will get into the more technical terms later on. Now, why do we need assessment? Why is this whole idea required? Right. Because as I said, that the whole idea of program involves the financial implications. That is one, of course, but the larger goals of any program implementation are linked with the policy discourse. So you have certain global reforms that are taking place in the education sector, and so many areas that can be defined there. For instance, this whole idea of foundational learning, which was very much emphasized in NEP 2020, and you had a full G20 group on foundational learning, where so many countries had participated. So this is not, the foundational learning is not a goal that is specific to India. It is something that is being emphasized across the globe. So foundational learning is the learning between the age of 3 and 8. As identified by NEP 2020. So what are the programs? For example, Nipun Bharat was a program that was implemented large scale with this goal of achieving foundational learning in the age group of 3 to 8 years. So how would you assess the program implementation if one were to assess it later on? So that becomes one aspect. So not just the requirement of a funding agency, but also the requirements of the larger policy discourse. That is why assessments are important, So for instance, in India there is a focus on quality education. So how have you achieved quality in educational structures, processes, or infrastructure, financial management, so on and so forth.
Overall implementation.
Right, overall. And of course the achievement of goals that are emphasized by any policy, and the most important goal is of course learning, that every child learns, and learns up to his or her best competency, and competencies are also malleable. The competencies can be enhanced and increased. Some of these competencies could be problem solving.
Yes.
Or decision making by children, empathy, interpersonal relations, subject competency. Are they able to, achieve mathematical results, right, through various problem-solving methods. So on and so forth, basically. So we are, when we are looking at program assessment, it is also for, so it has two purposes. One is, of course, whether the goals have been achieved or not. And second, whether the funds or the finance that has been put into it, is that justified? So if we have pendency in fund utilization or if we have less of utilization or misutilization, that will also reflect in the program assessment, where the result would be, of course, that the program was implemented with the intention, with the correct intention, but it failed to utilize the funds in a proper fashion. So that could be one of the findings, right? So we are looking at assessment here in terms of what are the program objectives, as well as in terms of how the funds have played out.
And financial aspects.
Right. So and second, of course, so why do we need to assess is because it encourages self-evaluation of the program. So a lot of premium is attached to the credibility of the program. So was it credible enough, relevant enough, reliable enough? So these are some questions that we need to ask. Then we are also talking about the overall accountability of the education system. How far is the education system accountable to what it commits to do? So that is something that can really be one of the very major reasons why we assess a program. Now, why is this also an exciting project for the school leadership academies? Why do they need to really buy into this? Because obviously, it would improve collaboration across all stakeholders. You'd be asking questions not just to the school principal or the school head, but all the stakeholders who are involved in this entire leadership development, as we say, and students and parents and community. to really understand what their aspirations are today, and are the aspirations met or not. And it is also going to give a feeler into what exactly they are expecting at present, and how this program has been able to meet up to their expectations or not meet up to their expectation. This will be a very good opportunity for all the leadership academies to also collect evidences in a very systematic fashion, because all the good work that has been done needs to be documented, and that is also there written, as well as with evidences. So it's a good, it's a positive correlation, when some good evidences take place, and they also promote the overall health of the program. Then it can also be important for identifying correlates of achievement by promoting accountability and informing decisions. So basically, as we know, this whole policy planning exercise, the idea that once the assessment is done, the findings of the assessment study will definitely inform the decisions of what will be the future course of the program. So what is going to be the future course of action? What modifications, course correction one needs to do to be able to make positive changes in program implementation, and then achieve the desired results. Right. So before I really get into the curriculum framework on SLDP, we are also we also come across this whole confusion between assessment and impact evaluation. So impact evaluation is more technical procedure where we are really understanding the causal relationship between the intervention and the outcome. Okay. So there, when we are talking about impact evaluation, it is it has to be large scale, it has to have random sampling, it has to have what we say, when we are looking for answers, we draw inferences, and we might need to administer inferential statistics and so on. So usme what we are going to think about in that case is more in terms of cause and effect. So that is a little bit of more of a technical process, and we can perhaps go into the impact evaluation by next year henceforth. But at present, we are really looking at assessing the program through process-based indicators, which are more process-based. So for instance, if in a particular school, one is looking at what has been the, what are the changes in teachers, in their mindset, or in their attitudes towards the school, and what are the reasons and what are the actions and behaviors of the school principal that has actually promoted these positive changes in teachers. So that becomes a process-based indicator, assessing the mindset or assessing the behaviors and actions of school principals so that this outcome has been achieved. Or for instance, the learning outcomes of students, or the learning more specific. For example, one competency is something which is a very good indicator of learning outcomes, and that is articulation or communication.
That is a very important part.
Yes. Actually. So whether what the child has learned, is he or she able to communicate effectively or articulate the learning effectively. So once that is done, that becomes a measure of leadership. That becomes the measure of how the leader has, what kind of interventions or what kind of processes did he and the teachers together initiate in the classroom, which is why, or the result of which was this better understanding by children as well as better articulation by children. So another example is like, having a print-rich environment that everybody talks about, especially in the context of preschool or early grades. Now, print-rich environment has a positive visual, learning effect on children. So once they enter into classroom which has a print-rich environment, and they have more interaction with visuals and with audio-visual text and so on. So then that is the time when they start internalizing the knowledge.
And trust कब और डेवलप होता है? बिकॉज ये बात नॉर्मली भी बोली जाती है कि इट्स वेरी एक शब्द जितना इम्पैक्ट नहीं करते उतना एक जो एक शब्द चित्र है, एक पिक्चर है, उसका विजुअल इम्पैक्ट साइकोलॉजिकली वो हमारे ब्रेन में बैठता है, तो दैट इज़ ऑल्सो वेरी इम्पोर्टेंट.
दैट इज़ ऑल्सो इम्पॉर्टेंट, राइट. सो इस तरह से हम प्रोसेस बेस्ड इंडिकेटर्स को आइडेंटिफाई करके एक असेसमेंट फ्रेमवर्क को डिज़ाइन कर सकते हैं. सो that is what we are really aiming at. So if we come to the design of the assessment study, again I would like the slide to be on. We see the curriculum framework. Now this curriculum framework on SLDP is the backbone of the school leadership development program, and these are the 7 key areas. So the assumption has been 10 years back or 12 years back, the assumption has been that if school principals are able to understand and internalize, analyze these key areas, the 7 key areas, and learn knowledge, skills and attitude within each key area, then the whole comprehensive understanding of this curriculum, both in its theoretical aspect as well as in the practitioner aspect, will help them to bring about positive changes in self, in teachers and in the entire stakeholder community, as well as in the circumstances of the school, thereby bringing about school transformation. So these 7 key areas really hold the power to influence the rigid change, the rigid frameworks also in a school, you know. So it really makes the school more flexible to accept changes and to bring about positive changes in a long term. Now leadership and change have been 2 interlinked concepts. So if I were to ask you, for example, you know, Yashu, that why do you want to become an educational leader?
Because when you educate the student, when you educate the new generation, so that is very
right.
That creates a
it creates a positive
vibe
and positive impact, you know. So what you are basically doing in this whole process is you are you know, you're changing the environment, the mindset, or you're changing the environment where the children are located. So you're changing the environment where all these stakeholders are basically coming together and creating processes, which we call as the school processes the classroom processes. So some sort of a change is always integral to leadership. So everything has a status quo, you know, what is happening at present. It is a status quo, you know, but we want to bring about change, and that is where leadership becomes important, you know. Because a leader would obviously want to bring about some change, you know, change the status quo. So these are certain elements that have been built within this framework, which is the curriculum framework. Now, if we are to design this small assessment study on the SLDP program, we're just going to define the framework. This is basically the title. If you go back into the title, it is the 2 major variables that are coming across are school leadership and school improvement. Now school improvement, if you see, there are a lot of researches that have happened on this area, school improvement and school development. But school improvement is again a large longitudinal process. कभी कोई भी बदलाव जो है बहुत कम समय में नहीं आता है,
gradually
होता है. तो and all the changes, you know, cumulatively change or transform a particular circumstances, right? So school improvement is really basically you can say, you know, an addition of multiple changes that are taking place at any given time and space. But this needs to be a longitudinal process. Hence, leadership and school improvement are the 2 defining variables in this study. Now you can basically extract the sub-variables from these 2 variables, and this is something that is for all the leadership academies, you know, just to initiate and start thinking about this assessment project. Now, how will you extract these sub-variables? You're going to extract this through the reading of the curriculum framework in much detail. The areas of perspective on school leadership, developing self, transforming teaching learning process, building and leading teams, leading innovations, leading partnerships, and leading school administration, and anything else that you want to add in here. So this is how we are going to extract the sub-variables. And also National Center for School Leadership has developed a taxonomy, which is also uploaded on the website, and one can access it anytime. Now this taxonomy is again in a flat manner. It provides the themes and sub-themes of the curriculum framework, which you also call as the units and sub-units of the curriculum framework, and gives a very comprehensive understanding of the entire space of school leadership as it exists today. So we are also in the process of bringing out the revised curriculum framework on school leadership development, considering so many changes have happened in the meanwhile. So you can also look at the taxonomy and make that as one of your bases of extracting the sub-variables. So this is really the initial thinking of it. Now these were the program objectives, and interestingly these objectives were defined in 2012-2013. And we have modified them a little bit, but the spirit remains the same. The first objective is to assess the influence of school leadership development on school improvement. As I said right in the beginning, that we are not really assessing, we are assessing the program, but we are assessing a much more large, longitudinal, progressive improvement in principals, in school heads, as well as in the schools that they are leading. So really assessing the influence of school leadership development on school improvement, that's the first objective. Two, I think this is again one of the objectives that was very close to the design of the school leadership development. That was to capture the shift in the role of school heads from mere administrators to change leaders. तो जैसे कि आज भी है, बहुत सारे school heads or headmasters and principals, they think that they hold an administrative position, which is true, but are they mere administrators, or they are managers, and even beyond they are leaders. And अगर उसमें हम change शब्द को और add करते हैं, are you a change leader or not?
Exactly.
So ये एक progressive understanding है leadership पे. So from mere administrators to change leaders, have they been able to shift in their role? Not to say that they do not remain administrators, they are administrators for sure, but they have they understood or have they realized that their role is much beyond an administrator?
In a very larger prospect, larger
right.
picture.
And also, are they practicing as change leaders? That is something which is important. The third one is to document evidences in school improvement, which you can do through assessing the stakeholder perception, the stakeholder engagement, various processes in the classroom, playground, laboratories, and the school morning assembly, or any of those annual functions or 6 monthly functions, so on and so forth. So many spaces for different processes within a school. So that is something that can be assessed, and evidences can be documented. The learning culture in the school. Now this whole idea of culture has become very important now, the idea of organizational culture. So once the culture is rich and dynamic and it's democratic, there's a lot of exchange of ideas and innovation, for instance, because in fact innovation has become the buzzword now. So because it helps you improve your creative abilities and think for things that are not yet thought about. So this whole idea of organizational culture is something now very critical to leadership as well. So has the leadership been able to promote a positive learning culture in school? And many other things can be really taken care of. So for example, we come across so many school principals who would perhaps share with us saying that there are certain instances of heightened conflict. in the teaching community or between the principals and the teachers, you know. So how do you really, what kind of a culture does one create so that, you know, conflicts can get minimized? One approach of really conflict resolution or conflict mitigation is to just approach the topic head on. And the other more long-term perspective is to basically develop such a culture that you know, it creates minimum conflicts.
कल्चर की मैं यहाँ पे बात की तो एक छोटा सा डिफरेंस जो आप अभी एक्सप्लेन कर रही हैं, जब बात करते हैं ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल कल्चर एंड अभी जो आपने लर्निंग कल्चर की बात की, तो वो हियर लाइन डिफरेंस क्या है between these?
So organizational culture is, of course, I mean, that's a separate variable in
Exactly.
in organizational management and the study of organizations. But यहाँ पे जब हम स्कूल की बात कर रहे हैं या किसी एजुकेशनल कॉन्टेक्स्ट की बात कर रहे हैं, so we are really zeroing it down to learning culture. So for example, you know, let me give you an example and explain it through that. You know, so for example, we have a school which is in a very rural community, in a rural area, and there are children, you know, who are, you know, who have a tendency of dropout because of various homebound reasons and other reasons.
So many
you know,
other reasons.
So many reasons, you know. But if the school has an inviting learning culture, the dropout can actually, you know, reduce.
Or in an interesting manner as well.
And in an interesting manner. And the child would also want to come to the school because the school is welcoming and he or she is learning there. The idea is that, you know, when you are learning something somewhere, you are more inclined to be associated with that space. That happens for us adults as well, you know. So हम वही कार्यक्रम अटेंड करेंगे या फिर वहीं जाना पसंद करेंगे, उन्हीं लोगों से मिलना पसंद करेंगे जहाँ से हम कुछ सीखते हैं.
लर्निंग हो रही है.
तो अगर लर्निंग कल्चर किसी भी स्कूल का पॉजिटिव होगा, इनवाइटिंग है, वेलकमिंग है, एंड द चाइल्ड इज लर्निंग, बिकॉज वन ऑफ द मेजर रीजंस फॉर ड्रॉप आउट इज ऑल्सो डिसइंटरेस्ट in the school, disinterest in the studies, you know, because the studies are, you know,
monotonous pattern पे चल रही है तो उसको एक improvement नहीं है,
right,
changes
you know.
नहीं है.
So when you have different modalities of you know, having a rich culture, learning culture, then even the children are excited to be associated with the school, come to the school and learn. तो रिटेंशन बढ़ता है बच्चों का स्कूल में. सो दिस इज़ हाउ रियली द लर्निंग कल्चर इज़ इम्पैक्टिंग learning levels or learning outcomes. So we can document these evidences. That becomes important, you know. So these three are the objectives that the study outlines. Now depends on the School Leadership Academy, you know, you can have these three designs for the study. One can be exploratory design, you know, which is largely exploring the kind of influence that leadership has on school improvement, asking certain questions which are process-based questions. You can also go for survey design, you know, which is, you know, a more, let us say, quantitative measurement of items. So that could be survey design, or impact evaluation, where you are really going for cause and effect understanding of any phenomena. And here I would like to say also, because this is one thing that we have faced this when we are going for any assessment study or any evaluation study, the fact that, you know, there are multiple factors that are responsible for an effective leader or effective leadership. हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि स्कूल लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम के द्वारा ही किसी भी व्यक्ति में बदलाव आया है. बहुत सारे कारण हो सकते हैं, आपके पारिवारिक कारण हो सकते हैं, सामाजिक कारण हो सकते हैं. So there could be many family or societal reasons or personal reasons, you know, which actually impact you as a leader, and you become more effective, right? And there are many programs today that are parallelly existing,
and vice versa regarding the merit and regarding the demerit. This is vice versa.
True. So so basically we cannot say that leadership or school leadership development program is the only program which is responsible for positive learning culture in a school, or positive learning outcomes, or positive personality traits. So we cannot really attribute one program for positive changes. There are many programs that are being run by the state governments. There are many programs that are being run by the non-governmental organizations. तो वो हम pinpoint नहीं कर सकते हैं, which is why impact evaluation is something that where we are really looking at one intervention and how that intervention has brought about changes. So we are really looking at assessment of the program as it is running, the more of a process-based assessment based on process indicators. That is what we are really looking at. And even then, we have this caveat that there are many factors that would influence school improvement, not just the school leadership development program. अब जैसे ICT का दौर चल रहा है और टीचर्स जो हैं वो बहुत ICT savvy हो गई हैं. तो ICT enabled teaching learning processes में अगर बहुत ज़्यादा कोई स्कूल में जो टीचर्स हैं they are very excited and they know many methods and tools, perhaps that may not be very directly linked with the school leadership development program as it is existing by the National Center for School Leadership.
Yes.
So however, that is a variable, and sometimes teachers are also self-directed learners. तो उन्होंने बहुत कुछ सीखा है, वो अपने मोटिवेशन के कारण सीखा है, नॉट नेसेसरली बिकॉज ऑफ द स्कूल प्रिंसिपल.
सेल्फ इनिशिएटिव.
यस. सो इस तरह की बहुत सारे कैवियट्स हैं जो हमें ध्यान में रखने हैं व्हेन वी आर डिज़ाइनिंग दिस स्टडी एंड वी कैन प्रोसीड देयर आफ्टर. Now in school leadership academies, who will be the sample? The sample is of course these school heads and principals who have been part of the school leadership development programs of NCSL NIEPA, one or more such program. बहुत सारे states में बहुत variation है, कहीं head teachers हैं, head teacher in charge हैं, principal, head of institution, different terminologies हैं, पर जो भी head teacher या in charge principal HOI की position पे है, आप उनको select कर सकते हैं. Sample size again can be depending on the size of the state or the population of school leaders in position in the schools in that particular state or UT. तो अगर हम ये identify कर सकें, and I think all the states and UTs have this data of how many school principals are in position in that particular state or UT, and you can use the sample proportion from the population of in-service in position school leaders. So either you can go with that or you can have purposive sampling, depends. There can be a variety of tools, questionnaire, you can also have a Google form now, or you can have printed questionnaires, interview schedules, you can have group discussions, FGDs, or observation checklists, school visits. There can be multiple tools that we can employ to gather the data, right? So I think this really gives the entire picture in a very basic fashion of how we can think of designing an assessment study of the school leadership development program. So this can really go a long way in terms of documenting evidences of the positive influence of school leadership on school improvement, and this can really inform the practices and the thinking at the national level, not just at the state or the UT level or even at the ground level, because and this is one of the learnings of NCSL, that today when we look at this whole population of school heads and school principals, they are very knowledgeable. They are very knowledgeable, and they have a host of competencies which were not there perhaps 10 years back.
Exactly.
And now this whole awareness and the levels of competencies have improved.
Especially in positive manner.
Yes, of course, in a positive manner, the competencies have actually also improved. So now what is it that they need, or what are their aspirations now? We need to assess that as well. The leadership academies, you need to assess that as well, in terms of what more and where can we go forward from here. And this kind of an assessment study is going to definitely tell us in terms of where we stand now and where we need to go in future.
Exactly.
And how do we prepare future leaders. So this is one question that we are going to end this session with. What kind of competencies you think a school leader need to possess in the 21st century? Maybe find answers for this question.
Exactly, we will. थैंक यू सो मच मैम, अपने टाइम निकाला और इतने अच्छे से इस पूरे लीडिंग असेसमेंट ऑफ SLDP इन स्कूल लीडरशिप एकेडमिक्स 2024-25 इतना डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन किया। और बेसिकली जब हम NIEPA 2020 की बात करते हैं तो उसका पर्पस भी यही है कि किस तरीके से इम्प्रूवमेंट, जैसे आपने स्कूल इम्प्रूवमेंट, एनवायरनमेंट, लर्निंग कल्चर की बात की, तो ओवरऑल जो बेसिक लाइन है वो यही है कि डेवलपमेंट,
राइट,
वो किस तरीके से किया जाए। थैंक यू सो मच मैम।
थैंक यू
मैम। तो हमारे साथ असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर चारू मलिक फ्रॉम NCSL नीपा से हमारे साथ थी, जो हमें बता रही थी कि जो स्कूल लीडरशिप डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम है वो क्या है, इसकी क्या रिक्वायरमेंट है और किस तरीके से इसका असेसमेंट किया जा सकता है, और फ्यूचर में हम किस तरीके से गोल सेट कर सकते हैं इन एजुकेशनल फील्ड इम्प्रूवमेंट के लिहाज से। तो इसी के साथ अभी के लिए तो इस सेशन में इतना ही, लेकिन चलते चलते कुछ खास बातें आपके लिए कि लगातार हमारे लाइव अलग अलग क्लास, अलग अलग विषय पर हमारे डिफरेंट चैनल्स पर, eVidya के अलग अलग चैनल्स पर दिखाए जाते हैं, जिसमें सबसे पहले सुबह लाइव की शुरुआत होती है लाइव कार्यक्रम की। वो है हमारा योग शक्ति का कार्यक्रम, जो कि आपको दिखाया जाता है, जिसमें हमारा कल का जो विषय है वो है साइटिका से जुड़ा हुआ, तो आप उसको देख सकते हैं। इसके अलावा जो अलग समय पर 2 बजे से जो हमारा लाइव शुरू होगा उसका भी आपको स्क्रीन पर ये पूरा स्केड्यूल दिखाया जा रहा है, तो इसके अनुरूप आप हमारे eVidya के अलग अलग चैनल्स को देख सकते हैं। हमारे जो कार्यक्रम हैं आप उनका लाभ उठा सकते हैं, और आप मतलब आप सब, चाहे हमारे स्टूडेंट हों, चाहे शिक्षक हों, शिक्षक मित्र हों, या फिर हमारे अभिभावक हों, इसके अतिरिक्त हमारे किसी भी कार्यक्रम से जुड़ी हुई कोई भी बात, कोई भी क्वेरी या कोई भी फीडबैक आप देना चाहते हैं तो हमारे नंबर से भी संपर्क कर सकते हैं, और जो हमारा ईमेल का पता है उसके माध्यम से भी आप हमसे संपर्क साध सकते हैं। तो इसी के साथ हमारे अलग अलग कार्यक्रम आपके लिए हम लाते रहेंगे, अलग अलग विषय से जुड़ा हुआ, लेकिन अभी के लिए इस सेशन में इतना ही। अपना बहुत ख्याल रखिए और प्रसन्न रहिए। नमस्कार।